Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the special edition of Inside the News with Alarm Clock. Alarm Clock, which was founded by Jan Williams and myself, Desi Brown. Jan will be joining us a little later, and we're here today with a few guests. I'll have them introduce themselves later, but before we do that, the numbers to call today are 466-0989 or 662-0989, 762-0989, and the stream is also available on YouTube and Twitch via WINNMedia 98.9 as well as on Alarm Clock. WINNMedia SKN, I apologize. We've made those changes, so it's WINNMedia. And again, you're tuned into a special edition of Alarm Clock with Win FM 98.9. Now, today we're going to have a few guests with us who are going to be talking about making the paradigm shift to real development. What's stopping our national progress? Again, making the paradigm shift to real development. What's stopping our national progress? And our guests today, we have joining us from Nevis via our online stream, Mr. J.D. Keynes, and in studio I have Mr. Maurice E.K. Flanders, the real right, Preacher E.K.
Rastafari.
And I also have with us Dr. Joy Clark. I just want to say here that I'm a huge fan of her work. Huge fan. But before we get into the discussion, I'll have each of them just say a few words before we get straight into it. Ike?
Honorable.
Oh.
Okay. Right. So, thank you for inviting me, and I'm happy to be here right now to speak about where we go from here. And the last series from Alarm Clock were very, very interesting, very important, very critical to understanding where we are and where we need to go. So I'm happy to have a discussion, especially with someone, Ike, who I think not only very entertaining, but has his pulse and what's happening in St. Kitts and Nevis. And it's always good when we have objective voices who are not politicians or business people. Well, he's a businessman, but you know what I mean, like an objective commenter, social
Rich
commenter.
businessman.
Right. So it's going
Just
to be
putting
a
it out there
good,
for
a
y'all.
good discussion, and especially with JD.
Yes, thank you so much, and we're happy to have you, Ike.
Hi, good morning all. And it's, I wouldn't say it's pleasant to be here. I'm not a morning person, but I think as the morning plays out, I will, get into the groove of things. But very good panel. I'm a fan of all of you guys and, love what you do and how you do it. I think this is going to be a great discussion this morning. It's a well-needed discussion. I think we need to hear from people who, as the Honorable Clark says, who are outside of, the norm, the politicians and the 1% at the top. We need to truly get something going that is from the bottom up as opposed to the trickle-down economics that we're accustomed to, that if you give rich people more money, that somehow it's going to be better for all of us. Nothing but a blatant lie.
Just putting that out there very early. All right,
So
thank you so
the
much.
shift is definitely needed.
All right, thank you so much. We're happy to have you. And JD, can you come in with us and just say a few words?
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me this morning. Greetings from the island of Nevis. It's quite busy here on Nevis. We have lots of things happening. I just actually came from a funeral service, and I'll be going to, going back there after this. But I want to thank you so much. I couldn't miss out the opportunity to weigh in on this conversation. Like EK and Dr. Clark said, I believe that it's going to be a very interesting discussion, and I look forward to hearing the differing views.
All right, thank you so much. And we're also very happy to have you with us this morning. Well, this is my first time sitting on, moderating a panel with Dr. Clark as well as JD Keynes. I am very, very excited about this discussion as well. Now, as we said, the topic is making the paradigm shift to real development. What's stopping our national progress? And before we get into details, I wanted to be sure that we understand some of the definitions of these words that are being used. Progress, and I can go around and I will ask the question, but for us, we've highlighted progress as simply meaning movement towards a goal. And then, of course, when you define, I want you to kind of give me a brief idea of what you think progress, what constitutes that progress. So movement towards that goal, for us, what is progress to you? And what constitutes progress on a national, because we're talking about national progress. We're talking about shifting to real development, right? So just give us an idea. I'll start with JD. Since you ended me just now, I would like to go back to you.
All right. So when I think of the word progress, like you said, it's movement towards a goal. But how do we get there? And for me, it's you must have an idea, there must be a plan, and then there must be some action to follow up. And I think, well, I don't want to get too much into it yet because obviously we're just at the start of the program. But I think it's because there isn't all of these parts being connected as they should be connected, why we probably are at this stage where we have to have this discussion asking what's stopping our national progress. But I believe when you hear the term progress, you think of an idea, something that comes to mind as to what it is you want to do. And then once you've gotten that idea, you talk about the plan to roll out that idea. You talk about the plan to execute that idea. And of course, there must be some follow-up action to make sure that it moves from an idea into a plan and it actually happens. So that in a nutshell is what I think of when I hear the term progress.
Thank you so much, JD. Ike?
Oh, you're coming to me now?
Yes.
Well, the definition is very clear. A forward, onward movement towards a destination or towards something that you ultimately want to have improve or advance. So, for me on a national level, I have long observed that the people at the very top don't very well understand what we as a nation have as our main resource, which is our people. And you can invest in a product or a thing and you see returns immediately in terms of finances and profits. But if you invest in people, it's a long haul and it's a big gamble. So if you don't have that as the basis to move forward, then you can't move as you would want to move. So for me, I think progress must come with a realization of what is truly your best resource, how you can utilize that to get to where you need to get to. My short answer.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Do you want me to call you? What do you want me to refer to you as? Every time I call you, you kind of, What do I call you? What should I call you? Dr. Clark? That's appropriate? No problem. No problem. Once
yeah,
you find
sure.
that, I don't want you to feel like, some people say like, I feel like mature, old.
No. I worked for that title.
Okay,
so
all
please.
right, all right, all right.
Amen.
Your service
Right,
lady, I'll be
okay.
calling you Dr. Clark.
So it's totally fine.
I hope when I sing in public, I could call you Dr. Clark too.
And you can call me Giant in public, but sure, because I understand the importance of giving people their names, especially names that they work
Okay.
for. I didn't work for the other name. That's why we don't have to call that other name at this point, even though it's something I can't escape, right? But let's talk about progress.
Yes.
And all the definitions that were given are so correct, so I don't even need to add to the definition, except to say, let's question why we're not making that journey as we are, that journey to that goal of development. And then question what really is the goal? What does development look like to us? What's the end point? Is there an end point? So I think to effectively answer that question, we have to ask ourselves, why aren't the wheels churning as they should? And when did they stop? Right? What's stalling us from moving forward? And it seems to be a matter of, as Ike said, we don't understand what progress really is, the inclusivity that's required for progress, where you're not talking about othering people. You're saying, okay, everyone has to be part of this journey towards progress, regardless of your age, your gender, your political affiliation, your residential status. You have to be included in this journey to whatever that end goal is.
Wow. I like some of the propositions that you put out there about especially using the word journey, because I've gathered from everybody's responses is that we are thinking about moving forward. And so far the themes are people, talking about people, including people, ideas, resources, and just simply being on a journey to move forward. Does development have an endpoint? That's a very good question. Very, very good question. Ike, does development have an endpoint?
Development? No.
Yes, I agree. I couldn't agree more. One of the things that we have to consider is that we are evolving. And I find that in our federation, not just in our federation, probably across the world, we take some time to adapt to the idea of change and what it means, and that it's not essentially a threat, but it is a concept that we need to grasp and understand so that we can move forward. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about making some progress, including people.
But you know,
Yes, go JD, go ahead.
oh, sorry.
That's fine.
I was about to say that, that happens sometimes because we're dealing with people of varying ages. We're dealing with people now of varying backgrounds, because you realize that St. Kitts and Nevis is slowly becoming, or has slowly become, a place where a lot of people of different nationalities now residing here. And we also have people of different, I don't want to use the word religious, because it's not so much so religion, it's more of what people deem to be acceptable. And so because of that, we are constantly in this tug of war as it relates to development. What is the change that we need? Because some persons will tell you, well, nothing is wrong. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Whereas, as you just mentioned, Nessie, that, well, hey, things are always evolving, and so there is no end point to development. But it's not everybody who sees it that way, and it has to do with the varying personalities, the varying backgrounds, cultures, all of that we have here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I think that plays a huge role, and the persons who are charged with making the decisions sometimes don't want to offend people, and so they decide, you know what, let me stay away from this, or I'm going to go with this group, so all of that comes into play when we are talking about adapting to change, I think.
No, I was just saying, good morning, everyone. Gian here. I feel I know there's so much energy in our panelists, and somehow everyone seems so calm. So I think I'll turn things up a notch. I want to know from, yes, I want to know from the panelists, when you think about where we are and where we could be, in terms of development. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are we? No. Where are we compared to where we could be? Where you think we could be? Where are we now?
I would say a 4.
A 4?
Based on what I've observed about the potential of petitions and divisions. You know, I think that if we truly embrace our capabilities and, you know, the things that we are capable of, we could be further ahead than we are right now. And it could be in various aspects. It could be in food security, it could be in healthcare, it could be in industry, my God, entertainment. It could be in so many things. But we don't utilize the personnel that we have here on the ground. There are some people who are at the very top, and they think that their position that they have to hold on to it for their life. They don't like to concede to anybody else, to defer to anybody else, because they feel as though that they won't be useful if they defer to somebody else who is either younger than them or less experienced than them, so to speak. And so what you have is just a steady mediocrity being played out, and tokenism every now and again, a little pat on the back if you make a little baby step. But we could be moving in leaps and bounds if we would just realize our potential and the people around us who have the capacity to move us and accept that and just move.
I like that. What about you, Joyal? What do you think?
What Ike said.
You're 4? You put it at 4 as well?
No, I'll use my own number and give my own position. So I'll be fair and say 5, simply because we are here, right? We have persons like us who recognize that something needs to be done. Like, there's a drastic shift that needs to happen in our society. But why are we at 5? And I want to link it to this, what I call like a discontinuation cycle. Every 5 years, or every time there's a shift in the administrative powers in St. Kitts and Nevis, there's a shift in the policies and a shift in the programs and a shift in who benefits. And it ultimately stalls our country from developing and progressing. So we have a 5-year journey, basically. And then people have to scrape for relevance, as Ike said. And then we have young people who are saying, why did I invest $50,000 in my education if I'm here working on STEP for 3 years? If I can't be positioned where I'm useful, or if I am going to always suffer because of my last name or my residential address or my political affiliations. This is the discontinuation cycle that's preventing us from moving beyond 5, and that's why I stick us at 5. It's a 5-year cycle, and it's something that really needs to end. That's the problem.
I'll undeep that.
The 5-year cycle.
Feel free.
Yeah. All right, JD, what's your number?
Yeah, so Joyel summed it up nicely when she spoke about the discontinuation. I actually had it that, there's no real continuation because of politics. For me, the number depends on the sector that we are referring to, because I think that in some areas we are far more advanced than in others. And also, when we are to compare St. Kitts and Nevis, I don't think that it's even on the same level in terms of development. And so I can't give a number in a vacuum. I could say this though. In terms of private sector development, I think that we have way further to go. I think that we are probably, in my opinion, maybe about a 4 in that area. However, in certain areas, we would be a little bit more advanced, but I can't see anything surpassing a 6. So I would give us between 4 and 6, depending on which sector we are referring to, because I can acknowledge and admit that there have been significant strides in some areas, but there are some others as well that require lots and lots of attention. And as I said, there's that St. Kitts and Nevis dilemma where I can't judge St. Kitts' Nevis's development with St. Kitts' development. I believe that it's 2 different levels. I believe that in Nevis, if St. Kitts is at a 4 according to EK, then Nevis must be at a 2, if we were to use that scale, to be honest.
Okay, so I guess that means we should have a separate Nevis conversation. So that's even something we could really explore, considering
Right.
development in Nevis on its own for us to get some.
But Jen, if you do that, then you're gonna have to break down St. Kitts into 8 because Bastille and Newton Gong are 2 different things.
Oh boy.
So if we're gonna begin to do
That's a
that,
good point too.
Okay.
So we're talking decentralization of development from town throughout the country,
there you go.
right? And then
even
over to
St.
Nevis,
Kitts
St. Kitts and
to
Nevis. Where once a few things that you guys mentioned, just so that the listeners could be able to follow, making the paradigm shift to real progress, and what's stopping national progress, real development, and what's not stopping national progress. So some things that you guys already mentioned are political polarization, looking at how we are impacted by the small space that we live in, and having certain political views or affiliations that could cause issues of victimization, and then of course issues where somebody mentioned nepotism. I'm not quite sure, but I did hear also the issue
In
of
passing, Dr. Clark would have.
yes 5-year election cycle, creating a short-term progress timeline. So a short-term objectives, a mandate that does not really go beyond, let's say we're thinking about progress, but because of the cycle, we're looking at you want to get reelected, you try to make sure stuff happen within the 5 years, and then you start again for another 5 years. Kind of, to be fair, if you do have a government change, you will have a change in policy if different people are entering the space, because they have different priorities
But
and so forth.
you shouldn't have a change in good policy.
Correct.
Right.
And I agree there. That's
And
actually
there are
what I was
certain
getting
basic
to.
things-
Go ahead, JD.
There are certain basic things that I think should remain, or else we will continue to be in this predicament that we are in. We could achieve far more if we were to take personalities out of it. And also, I honestly believe that in St. Kitts and Nevis, one of our biggest issues is planning. I believe that we come up with an idea, even if it's an election idea, and we just say, okay, this is what we want to do. But ask, how are we going to get there? What is your plan? Or even what are your ideas to help us get there? And you realize that in many situations, it's a bit of a stumbler, a bit of a stutter. And I think that happens a lot in the various sectors in St. Kitts and Nevis, our ability to plan effectively, see things all the way through. And that, I believe, is one of the reasons why we are not seeing one of the reasons why there is a halt, so to speak, in our national progress.
I think we should just throw away the Westminster style politics.
I could not agree more.
It's winner
But
takes
replace it
all.
with what?
Yeah.
Replace
You
it
know.
with what? Yes. What are we replacing it with?
I think we could replace it with decent people and decent-minded people.
But everybody looks decent
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
before the ballot.
So how come Dr. Douglas, who won his seat convincingly in number 6, and Dr. Jeffrey Hanley in ministers in government? They're on the opposition benches.
Because we have a two-party system.
But what I meant is
So
that everybody always.
if I was prime minister, even though they may not be on my political side, I would not let that wealth of experience and knowledge just sit over there on the opposition benches, wasting away, because
After
they
you
could.
don't abuse them, then you go on.
But that is
you
okay,
walk out.
because I could disagree with you adamantly
Nah,
about
but
your political
disagree
views.
and abuse.
That's okay. But
But
Gian, I could abuse you today, and tomorrow, if I need information based on copyrights and all this kind of thing, I gonna call your phone
Right. But you never did it.
and
Well,
I gonna talk to you.
well, there's a difference. I think we will need to also establish two things. I want to go back to something JD said, because I want to put a word in front of planning. But just before you, abusing, I think what she means is when you discredit the knowledge and experience of individuals, and you turn around and you ask them for assistance. How does that look? That plays on the ego a lot. So I don't abuse you. I don't tell you everything about yourself and everything
say
that you
how
about
a
yourself.
thief.
Everything.
I mean, I want
I want to give a
Pride.
personal experience here,
Pride.
because I think it's important to say it, and it's a part of my own journey that I tend to ignore because I just want to move forward. But when Labour was in power, I think most persons know that I was working in the office of the Prime Minister as a director. Yeah.
Nobody tell me that.
And after about 3-4 months of doing nothing, I was basically asked, like many other labor persons, to leave office and go home. And I knew what was coming, that I would be demoted for no reason. And, I was like, I wonder if they're going to send me in a primary school. But anyways, I was still progressive, and I was still thinking, let me ask to be transferred to Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, because the worst that they can do to you is send you to become a teacher, because they feel like there's nothing noble about being a teacher. But I was sent to Keon High School, which has been the best punishment that they have meted out to me. And I say this to say, we somehow feel, as Ike said, that when you have an opposing political view, you cannot contribute to development in St. Kitts and Nevis. That's ridiculous. Every single person in St. Kitts has an opinion regardless of your political affiliation, and governments need to progress to the point where they recognize that a board would be better served by having at least 10%. And this isn't even one of my ideas. One of our colleagues mentioned this, that we need to have boards which are 20% labor and 80% government. 20% opposition, 80% and 80% government, to ensure that you have opinions from all facets of society, not just those who are supporting you, because, as you say, they represent the 1% on top and they want to maintain their relevance and maintain their income. So until we get to that point where we see people for their degrees, for their certification, for their training, for their expertise, their experience, regardless of what they vote in a box, we ain't gonna reach anywhere in St. Kitts and Nevis, sir. I think you're absolutely correct.
That's how I start where you start.
So we have three solutions out on the table. How are we gonna make the paradigm shift? We have planning, and I'm gonna put a word in front of JD's comment. JD, for you, strategic planning. I got a lot of that coming out of your comment. Inclusivity of ideas and people from varying backgrounds and opinions, and we have a change in the political system.
Yes.
I love that.
But there's a need for some political maturity. I don't know how we're gonna get there. That's how do we get there?
That's people.
We are taking
because some people don't let go things. Ike just said if he abuse me. No, it's not just the I don't think it's the current crop. I think it's a human thing. Where some people just can't let go that you abused me yesterday. Yeah, I just can't.
Use me.
I'll put this to you. Everybody who is on this panel right now, if elected, would drastically change the dynamics of politics. Every single person in this room.
I'm committing to that.
No,
We are sitting here discussing the change with an open mind. Mm-hmm. You have your views, but we respect each other.
Right.
We understand each other's capacity, and we don't step on toes, even if we disagree. And so if you have people like us at the helm, I mean, look at it. Every 5 years, as Dr. Clark says, you have this campaign to change the minds and hearts of the people, to get them to vote for you. What is stopping you from having even a 2-year campaign to change their mindset about accepting change and development and evolution and moving on? Accept technology, accept this, accept that. You can do it. You have the capacity to do it. You prove it every 5 years. So what is stopping you from doing it? The crop.
JD?
But you know what? I think I have to use we loosely because I'm a politician now, but we as the ordinary man and woman, I think we have a role to play too, because the reason why we continue to see this kind of attitude, this kind of demeanor, this kind of disposition in our leaders is because we allow it, and in some cases we enable it. Right? And so how then can we sit back? How then can we complain that the politicians are doing this, the politicians are abusing each other, they're not tapping into persons who can really effectively carry out certain duties when we are enablers? So for example, because you don't like JD, you figure, you know what, as good as she may be, with the media work, I don't think she should get that job because she's not on the side of the government. So you would rather let the institution, that department, suffer because you have some kind of discontent towards JD, right? But then you turn around, so that is okay for you. But the minute it is your family member or your friend, then you're up in arms and you realize, this isn't right and we need to stop this. My thing is, in a lot of cases, we don't understand the power that we have, or maybe some persons do understand, but they're afraid to speak up. And I think that is the crux of the matter, because we will only, let's be real, people elect people who they feel to be likable, or in some cases where there's the little, money passing here and people give into that. But essentially, people, they choose people who they feel are likable or they feel can fit into their image or their look good on the ticket, basically. Right? And that's who people elect.
Can I say something to that after?
They don't always choose the people who are more suited. And that is why sometimes you realize, even though we elect constituency representatives, sometimes there's a struggle when it's time to appoint ministers, because you have a set of people whose expertise are in the same thing, right? And then you put them to lead ministries that they don't know anything about, or even if they don't know who to go to. So, these are some of the things that I think are hindering us. And we, as the ordinary man and woman, don't realize, are not taking hold of our own power.
I want to say something to what JD said, and it's linked to the first point she made about the power of politicians and the power of people, and then I'll move away from the politics. I promise. Well, I kind of promise.
No, you don't have to.
The point is that we can blame politicians, and we could also blame a kind of systemic problem that we have here of politicizing everything and think it's a Nevis. Down to whether or not you could get access to free health care, right? Politicians, they sit in the big chair and they have the power to give and to deny. And that's a problem, because we've just been part of this society where what do you call it? You put them up on a pedestal, and it's problematic. But are we as a people really appreciative of the role that we play in getting us to that point of development? I want to ask firstly, what you asked in the opening statement, what's development for us? Is it a higher standard of living? Is it inclusivity? Is it wealth sharing? Is it that everyone has equal opportunity regardless of your age, your gender, your sexual orientation? And do we as a people appreciate the pathway to getting there? Because this means that we're going to have to be a little bit more ethical. We're going to have to focus on community. We're going to have to see people for who they are and get rid of ageism and sexism and all of these things. And then we're going to have to appreciate that some of the wealth has to be shared. Some of the wealth has to be shared. The wealthier people have to take on a little bit more responsibility. And our political system has to embrace, not just say it for, as Ike said, tokenism. We have entertainment industry and then nothing. Or we support entrepreneurs and then nothing. You actually have to, there must be, as you said, a drastic paradigm shift in how we govern our society. And yes, people have the power, but we're only going to keep the power if we get rid of those people like the politicians who are just archaic in their approach and divisive and divisive and malicious and seek to punish.
Self-serving too. They're trying to sustain themselves.
They put personal vendetta in front of just really achieving holistic and inclusive development.
I really couldn't agree more. Something that was mentioned earlier and is continued to be a motive in this discussion is the idea of working with people not because you like them, but because you have to. for the sake of the bigger picture is progress and development.
But how?
And that, no, I want to use an example of, and it's so funny because this issue isn't just localized to St. Kitts and Nevis. It is an issue all around the world because you're dealing with people. And generally when you're dealing with people, again, if you don't like somebody, you think that you don't have to work with them. But I was binge watching a show on Netflix the other day from Dynasty, and one of the star, Blake, he actually went up for to be elected as senator. So he went into the race and so forth, and there are 3 people who had to work with him, all black, to try. He's a billionaire going in as to be a senator. He has very, very questionable morals and ethics about the way he deals with things and people, and these individuals have all been wronged by him. But they all wanted something at the end of the day. One person wanted to get space to launch rockets. Somebody else wanted to see a change in education policy so that black schools or public schools could be able to benefit. Another one wanted to be able to maneuver in fashion industry and so forth. And all these individuals came together and decided that they would support him. They all had money. They all had something really good going for them so that he can get the support. And in doing that, at one point, one of them fell off and decided that they're not going to continue because they can't stand him. And a white lady came in the room and she said to him, she came in upset about, Blake not following through with the idea of advancing education policy, right? And she did not blame Blake. She blamed the young man who was supposed to be advancing that cause because he was supporting Blake. And she said to him, I blame you because you are supposed to learn to work with people that you don't like for the bigger picture. And that, I'm sure when a lot of people were watching that show, that probably went over their head.
Over the head.
But that
Guaranteed.
experience for me in that show was telling. I was like, this is something that you don't hear a lot of people saying that we need to do, because we've been wronged by so many people, but we continue to work with them. I mean, I could use the example of a lot of people wanting me on their team, and I step on a lot of people's toes, generally, right? People want to work with me because they think that I'll get the job done, right? Whether you like me or not, I generally don't care. But there are people who care. If me and Gianna have a good relationship, let's hire Gianna and Desi because they have a good relationship. But if me and Joel don't have a good relationship, they say we can't put them on the same team because they don't get along. But Joel and I may actually have the maturity to work together to get the job done, and that's something we don't.
That's what I think. That is, I tell you, I think we are not. We're not. I think we're glossing over that ego and our ability to be politically mature. I think we think like, just change the people. That's why I was challenging Ike on. It's not just change the crop. You might get back a new crop with the same bad attitude. A lot of people can't be or have a difficulty in being politically mature. One, because they don't really see it and they believe that this is how things should be done. And 2, they're really just carrying on vendettas from people who not even alive anymore. Are you vexed with people just because you know them to be from a PAM family or Labour family or whatever? I always remember a fellow tell me he liked me, but he can't deal with me because
you're Labour.
Too much Labour in my family. So, I mean, these kind of things, people we have these kind of perceptions, and I think that they are so huge.
But we could get there.
We can't ignore it, and we have to think about strategies to encourage that kind of political maturity and to help people, lower your ego.
I'll give you a suggestion. It's called personal development.
And therapy.
Everybody should invest in their personal development, and you as a parent should be instilling those values in your kids. I had a struggle this week with 2 of my boys, getting them to understand that nobody owes you anything in this life. The only thing that you can do anything about or make a change about is yourself. If somebody doesn't want to play with you at this point in time, understand that, respect that. It's called boundaries. Yes, you feel a way about it, but it's just a feeling. It does nothing to you personally. You can get past that, right? In entertainment, I have worked with lots of people who can't stand a bone in my body, and I can't stand none in theirs as well. But for me, is the bigger picture. I could be
Right.
at a function and a system goes down or somebody piece of equipment is not working. I have a container full of equipment I ain't doing nothing with. I am going to get up, go, get something in order for the entertainment to continue, because at the end of the day, it's not just about me and the individual. It's about the person in the bar. It's about the guy who bring the ice. It's about the person who may have had a rough day and they come to this event to just unwind.
Yep.
They have other responsibilities in their jobs. They could be a teacher, they could be an engineer, they could be a politician, and they came here seeking something. So if I could lend that support to keep all of those moving parts going outside of it, that comes from personal growth. Because I could sit there and say, to hell with him, you know, like he.
Yeah,
But I am
yeah.
looking at every single person that is at that function. How do you think I got to that state of mind? Personal development.
Singapore
in
did it.
teaching.
Sorry, Ike, but Singapore
Come in,
did
Dr. Clark.
exactly
Here's a
what.
doctor, you know. Stop me at any time.
Okay, so Singapore did it, and how does an island not much bigger than St. Lucia manages to become the center of the Pacific in terms of shipping and manufacturing and development and technology?
Technology, yeah.
How does that happen? I don't. I'm not the best student of history, but I just want to bring one little story about history. Queen Elizabeth I. I wrote it down here. I don't make notes. So. When she took over from her half sister, she recognized that, you know, as a female, because, you know, she decided she's not going to get married, etc. But she wanted England, an island, to become a superpower. And how did she do it? She recognized that, one, she was going to accept Catholicism and Protestants, and nobody was going to be labeled a heretic. Two, she was going to support education of her people, the universities, ensure that clever people could all be a part of development. And thirdly, that she was going to support entrepreneurs. So back then in the 1500s, English cotton was a big thing. So all these people who wanted to keep sheep, fine, let's support them. And it was all about inclusivity.
There you go.
Development. So we have Singapore as a current example of how islands could transform. So St. Kitts can do it. And also, I think one time my father told me there was this, I don't know wherever it was, this country where people in Asia, they had a problem with their teeth because, you know, they just didn't keep proper dental hygiene. And the prime minister then went on a campaign to say brush twice a day. And people moved from having decaying teeth to having, you know, healthy dental health and changing of mindset. So personal development, the persons at the helm taking on the responsibility of changing the narrative, of showing us that they are about inclusivity, it will work. So
Yes.
he's correct.
All right,
Ms.
JD.
Brown?
JD, hold on, Ms.
Yes,
Brown. We'll chime in soon. We have to break for lunch.
Yeah.
I want JD to get her word in.
Yeah, Jael is onto something. I love that point about the last point that she made, because, you know, I look at this even with even with our handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. I believe one of the reasons why we were slow to achieving our goal, assuming that we truly did, we were slow to achieve our goal is because we did not have that inclusive approach from the jump. People like to feel included, and as they should. And I maintain, I say it all the time on the island of Nevis, that if from the jump we said, okay, September 1st, okay, let me use November 1st would be the first date that anyone, including government officials, would be vaccinated. And we use the time from, let's say, September to November to educate our people, go into all the churches, go into the schools where the teachers are, go into the business places. We involve the opposition and all of that from the jump, not when it's already in progress. I believe we would have had a much better turnout. And even if some persons still opted not to be vaccinated, the comments behind the irrational would not be the level at what we are seeing now. And it's because we're not including people as we should. And I think it's an insult I think it's an insult for anybody to come and want to tell me, take this, take that. I'm talking generally now, when I am here and I think I can contribute to a discussion and you can include me in that discussion. I feel that we are not having enough of that. And the last thing I want to say before we shift, perhaps it's more of a question than a comment. In some islands or countries, I realize that the emphasis is on putting the people first, the people from that particular island or country first. So the citizens are being put first in those islands or countries. Could that be something that is stopping us from national progress? I don't know. Maybe something to think about.
It's incredible that you said that, because my note while Joel was speaking is that people are at the crux of the issues. So being able to address a lot of these issues include addressing people being able to overcome some of the challenges they themselves experience. And then Ike would have alluded to, not alluded, but he actually directly spoke about personal development. And of course, I noted here education. But we have to take a break so that we can get the news in. And we'll be back right after the news break and continue our discussions.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, and Carib Brewery.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
We are faced with tough decisions every day, but choosing the right home or motor insurance shouldn't be one. You need fast claim settlement from a company that's been rooted for over 31 years. And don't forget the A Excellent rating by AM Best. Make the intelligent choice. Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Reliable insurance that you can count on. Get a quote today for your home, motor, contents, and liability insurance needs, and make the intelligent choice. Caribbean Alliance. Tomorrow secured. Local agents, Dalil Walwyn & Co. Limited. Telephone 465-2631 or 469-5303 for the Nevis office.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
With the Win Headline News, I am Kevon Brown.
And I'm Devon Cornelius.
Making the headlines, 2 additional COVID-19 related deaths in St. Kitts and Nevis. Escaped prisoner Alfonso Thompson at large.
The Bamboo Bar is only open because my sister in England pays the bills since the pandemic.
Professor Denzel Williams out of Antigua and Barbuda offers advice on geopolitics concerning the relationship with the United States and the growing influence of China in Latin America and the Caribbean. Internationally, the United States Food and Drug Administration authorized the Pfizer vaccine for children aged 5 to 11, making it the first COVID-19 shot for young children in the United States. Now, the details. St. Kitts and Nevis has recorded 2 additional COVID-19 related deaths. The latest results bring the total number of deaths to 23 since the start of the pandemic. Recently, it has been observed that the number of daily confirmed cases has been on a downward trend. From the same situation report on Friday, October 29th, 4 confirmed cases were reported, with the previous days for the week reported 12, 11, 7, and 9 confirmed cases. 148 cases remain active. A prisoner escaped the custody of the authorities at Her Majesty's Prison Friday night, October 29th, and is still at large. The prisoner is 50-year-old Alfonso Thompson of West Farm and escaped custody at the Joseph and France General Hospital, where he was admitted as a patient. Thompson is brown in complexion, his hair cut low, brown eyes, 5 feet in height, and a stocky build. In collaboration with Her Majesty's Prison, the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force asks the general public to contact the authorities concerning any information on the escaped prisoner. Contact Her Majesty's Prison at 465-2241, extension of 4386, the Bastia Police Station at 465-2241, your nearest police station, or the crime hotline by dialing 707.
St. Kitts-based local bar and takeaway owner Shakira Tyson is keen to welcome customers back after COVID-19 has led to a significant decline in local trade for the past almost 2 years. WINNFM's news team had the chance to speak with 58-year-old local business owner of the Bamboo Bar on Liverpool Road in Bastia. She told us that her sister, who lives in England, is keeping her business alive by paying her rent and bills while the footfall is smaller than usual.
My name is Shakira Tyson and I am the owner of the Bamboo Bar, which is on Liverpool Road, which is in Bastia. Prior to the pandemic, I was holding my own, things was going good and the business was growing. But since the pandemic, things has took a downward spiral in the sense of obviously there's a lot of people who is out of work now due to the pandemic, so that means less foot traffic coming through the doors. I used to have a lot of construction workers coming through early in the morning. Obviously a lot of them are laid off and doing other things, and on the whole people who are still in work also have to watch what they're spending, because who knows what tomorrow's going to bring. The impact on the business has been me being unable to meet my monthly bills, and I'm one of the lucky ones because I have a sister in England, an older sister to me, who for the past year, maybe year and 3 months, has been paying my rent, current and Wi-Fi bills and things like that. So that's the only way I've been able to manage. If it wasn't for my sister, her name is Jackie, by the way, I don't think I would have managed.
In regional news, Professor Denzel Williams out of Antigua and Barbuda offers advice on geopolitics concerning the relationship with the United States and the growing influence of China in Latin America and the Caribbean. ABS Antigua has that report.
If I were to advise policymakers on the geopolitical positioning of a country like ours, like Antigua and Barbuda, or small states in general in the region, you must start off with the first principle. We are friends of all and enemy of none.
The advice from Professor of International Business Denzler Williams as debate rages in geopolitical circles regarding anxiety in Washington about the growing influence of Beijing in this region. The United States is the world's largest economy, followed by China. Professor Williams says Antigua and Barbuda and other Caribbean states should make strategic decisions since both countries are important as development partners.
What we need to say is that what is our bargaining chip? And one of our major bargaining chips right now are small island states, and where we're located is our location. And so we have to use that and say to them, okay, we have the location, we have certain things that you want, we have a partnership going. We're not going to be enemy of anyone, and we're friends of all, and we start off on that discussion, on that footing, and we build our relationship around it. But we should not be cornered into a position where we have to say, I'm going to make a choice between this one or that one, because that's not healthy.
What is clear is that China has dwarfed the United States in spending in Latin America and the Caribbean. Prime Minister Honorable Gaston Brown commented on China's spending in Antigua and Barbuda during a recent feature for MSNBC's Morning Joe program.
We'll be in the region of about $200 million US, which is sizable for a small country like Antigua and Barbuda. So again, China has proven to be a very reliable partner.
Professor Williams agrees China has invested far more heavily in the region than the United States.
If you look today, for example, at China's investment in the region, it has significantly now surpassed what the US would have invested in the region. So what do you do? What do you do in that regard? You say, I'm going to drop the US. The US has been a long time ally of this region. You can't say you're going to drop the US. And the US will always be an important friend for this region, so you have to keep them as well. Similarly, the Chinese has now become the new, the new investment partners, but it doesn't mean that you throw away the old partners.
Prime Minister Honorable Gaston Brown shares that view and has even used the same phrase, friends of all, enemies of none, to characterize his government's geopolitical stance. Meanwhile, when asked by MSNBC about the US's investment in the region, this was Prime Minister Brown's response.
I would say that they have not done enough for the Caribbean, and I think there should be a refocusing, and clearly there's still some developmental gaps within the region, and the United States has the resources to assist.
We now bring you these international reports.
Young children in the U.S. are one step closer to a COVID-19 vaccine. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration on Friday authorized the Pfizer vaccine for children ages 5 to 11, making it the first COVID-19 shot for young children in the United States. The CDC still needs to make recommendations on how the shot should be administered before it's given out. That will be decided after advisors discuss the plan on Tuesday. Pfizer said it will begin shipping pediatric vials of the vaccine on Saturday to pharmacies, pediatricians' offices, and other places where the shots may be administered. The FDA decision is expected to make the shot available to 28 million American children, many of whom are back in school for in-person learning. Only a handful of countries have cleared COVID-19 vaccines for children so far, including China, Cuba, and the United Arab Emirates. In the United States, around 58% of the population is fully vaccinated, lagging behind other nations such as the UK and France. And the share of young children who receive the shots may be low. The U.S. vaccination rate for 12 to 15-year-olds trails other age groups at roughly 47%.
Boris Johnson is to meet the French President Emmanuel Macron this weekend to try to diffuse growing tensions over post-Brexit fishing rights. Both leaders are in Rome attending a G20 summit amid acrimony between the UK and France concerning access to each other's territorial waters. France claims Britain has denied fishing licenses to dozens of French boats, while Britain says the majority of licenses have been issued, but some French vessels don't meet the criteria for British waters. France, having already impounded one UK vessel, is now threatening to block other boats entering her ports. Boris Johnson says he's puzzled by the threat and warns he'll do whatever's necessary to protect UK interests. With the very latest, here's our political correspondent, Alex Forsyth.
Arriving in Rome with a diplomatic row brewing, the Prime Minister stressed the ties that bind the UK and France. An old ally and friend, but the French President tonight told the Financial Times the UK's credibility is at stake in the row over fishing. This is the front line of this fight, which has been rumbling for months. The authorities here in Jersey and across the UK say they have stuck to agreements made after Brexit and issued licences to French boats that can prove a history of fishing these waters. But France says dozens have been unfairly denied. Local fishermen, like their counterparts across the Channel, are frustrated and worried.
The feeling amongst the fleet yesterday was one of absolute despair. Certainly there are real difficult times ahead. And our big worry down here is how are we going to try and preserve the fleet and come out the other end with the fishing fleet intact.
The row escalated this week when this British trawler was detained by French authorities, a warning shot about what might follow. France has threatened further checks and restrictions on British vessels, even suggested it could disrupt cross-channel trade. The Prime Minister said he'd be surprised if that happened, but the UK was ready to do what's necessary. The government is ready to retaliate.
Two can play at that game is what I would say, but in the first instance what we're doing is raising this with the European Commission. It's always open to us to increase the enforcement that we do on French vessels, to board more of them if that's what they're doing to our vessels.
In a further sign of tension, the French ambassador was summoned to the Foreign Office, where she was given a dressing down. The language on both sides is ramping up, but they are still talking. Both here and in France, fishing is an emotional issue which carries political clout. Boris Johnson promised British fishermen Brexit would mean a better deal. In France, President Macron's facing an election, which brings its own pressures. Both sides have reasons to take a tough stance, but both know a serious escalation could be damaging. This spring, French boats staged a protest off Jersey over the same issue. The UK says it does want a diplomatic solution to this ongoing dispute. France has set a deadline of Tuesday for it to be resolved.
There is a time for flexing muscles and put your trump cards on the table. And there are times for negotiations. The next step is really negotiation.
But for now, it's the fishermen that are caught in this diplomatic row. Alex Forsyth, BBC News, Westminster.
You were listening to the WINNFM Headline News on 98.9. Our top stories were 2 additional COVID-19 related deaths in St. Kitts and Nevis. Escaped prisoner Alfonso Thompson at large.
The Bamboo Bar is only open because my sister in England pays the bills since the pandemic.
Professor Denzel Williams out of Antigua and Barbuda offers advice on geopolitics concerning the relationship with the United States and the growing influence of China in Latin America and the Caribbean. Internationally, the United States Food and Drug Administration authorized the Pfizer vaccine for children aged 5 to 11, making it the first COVID-19 shot for young children in the United States. Thank you for listening.
That was the WINNFM Headline News. The Headline News was brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, and Carib Brewery.
With over a century of perfection behind the Macson name, a smooth blend with perfect balance and richness. It's no wonder Macson Triple Stout has a legacy of perfection. Enjoy the world over. Introducing our new look with the same great taste. Macson. All hail the king.
Please drink responsibly. We are faced with tough decisions every day, but choosing the right home or motor insurance shouldn't be one. You need fast claim settlement from a company that's been rooted for over 31 years. And don't forget the A Excellent rating by AM Best. Make the intelligent choice. Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Reliable insurance that you can count on. Get a quote today for your home, motor, contents, and liability insurance needs and make the intelligent choice. Caribbean Alliance. Tomorrow secured. Local agents, Dalil Walwyn & Co. Limited. Telephone 465-2631 or 469-5303 for the Nevis office.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
People make the world go
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
And we're back with a special edition of Inside the News with Alarm Clock. We started a discussion earlier about making the paradigm shift to real progress. If at any time you want to chime in, give us a comment or a statement, you can do so by calling 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989, and we are currently on YouTube or Twitch with WINNMedia and on Alarm Clock Facebook page and YouTube pages. Now, inside the studio with us, we have Mr. Maurice E.K. Flanders, and we have Dr. Joel Clark. Gian is here, my co-host and partner in crime, as well as Jody Keynes. I'll reserve those comments for off air. And we have JD Keynes joining us on the stream online this afternoon. Now, we talked a lot about what is stopping our national progress, and we spoke about how important it is for us to be able to identify what progress means. And when we went around the table, we mentioned that people are at the center of progress, ideas, resources, and just the idea of moving forward or being on a journey to move forward. Quite a bit of the issues that were mentioned are political. We have issues with political polarization. We spoke about having a short-term progress plan because of our 5-year election cycle. We looked at issues of, well, when we spoke about polarization, victimization, Ike didn't get to review some of his comments when he spoke about issues of tokenism as well. And also not being able to delegate or defer tasks to less senior officials and being able to let them essentially run with ideas and make the decisions that they need to be able to have progress play out. Now, we also spoke about how could we solve them. Some of the solutions mentioned: strategic planning, inclusivity of ideas and people from varying backgrounds, not just persons who are a part of your tribe, of the same political affiliation, but, other intelligent, hardworking individuals, young, mature, and to be able to sit at the table and speak in a very mature space about issues and resolving those issues. A change in the political system, we might need to start looking at moving away from the Westminster model, investing in self, right?
Someone on the comments, and we're following the comments on social media as well. Someone, Randall Thompson, said there's no real development until you have constitutional reform.
I couldn't agree more.
So there's that part as well.
I couldn't agree more. That's one of my platforms. We talk about a lot. And you said constitutional reform, but I would really love to see public sector reform.
That too.
Reform in general, because we had Dr. Clark speak earlier about Singapore and Singapore's progress, and Singapore's progress is actually one of the prime examples of how reform could actually help a country to reposition themselves to become a major player on the global stage. So what are some of the things that we need to do? You can tell us, and we'll come back to your comments later. Give us a call, join the conversation, but we're going to move forward and we're going to start looking at the question: who is responsible for progress? Who is responsible? JD?
Do we have JD or?
All right. Dr. Clark?
Amen.
He's saying, but you're the preacher. Okay, so I remember last evening when I was thinking about it, meditating and thinking about it, and I came up with people, politics, processes. The people, we're the ones responsible for it. We determine what type of systems we want in place and what's acceptable and what's not. And then, of course, the politics, not just the who is in power politics, but the political will to do so. even recognizing that, and I'll bring an example from one of my areas of expertise. Let's talk about climate finance. The whole climate world now is heading to COP. President Biden is going, and I think that's the most that a person who's not in that space would understand. What does it mean for us? What are we going to see in our budget at the end of the year? Are we going to see more resources move towards something about climate finance? And how does that resonate with a regular person? So I have to bring it down to eggs. For those of us who do the supermarket shopping, a couple of weeks we've been having an egg shortage. What does that even mean? It means that the bakers can't bake, the persons who want to make eggs, whatever egg-based food in their selling on the street can't do it. And it also speaks to food insecurity. At what point are we going to recognize that there must be a shift to becoming more food secure? And that shift to becoming more food secure is then linked to re-educating our people. And that's where, who is in charge? Those persons who are responsible for. Oh, okay, I'll pause there.
All right, we'll just pause for a moment and we'll take the caller. Good afternoon, caller.
Good afternoon to you and the panel.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, firstly, development is holistic, as you noted. You can't speak of development in one particular area and ignore it in other areas. So you can't, for instance, have massive infrastructure development and then have our interactions between us being like that of cavemen or women, okay? Tribalistic and shouting at each other, hurling insults and disrespecting someone else's opinion, this my way or the highway approach. I sometimes cringe at what people in the diaspora think about discourse on talk shows, where it seems like the most uncouth, unsophisticated, unthinking people seem to have the most say. Sure, by all means, everybody from the most refined to the lowest should have their say. But there must be standards. And those standards must be set high. Shouldn't be the lowest common denominator. And, it's difficult for some on the panel to point out, I understand, some being politicians and some make a living off of popular culture. But I think someone really needs to throw a grenade in the mix and say that our people are not meeting internationally accepted standards of development in many areas. Okay, and we are taught by our leaders to accept this as normal and encourage us to beat our chest, when in fact they should be encouraging us to improve. And we the people are quite happy to oblige and indulge in these jingoistic, self-defeating comparisons with our neighbors. Our standards to aim at should be, as someone said, Singapore, not with the rest of our neighbors, who, like, let's say, Dominica or Antigua, with lower levels of development, should aim higher. Now, Ike offered a practical solution, being the diplomat that he is, and that is of personal development, right, aimed at ensuring collective development. And actually, I've seen that in operation firsthand, and I know that it works. I was part of a company that everyone, from the corporate to management to the line employees, right, on probation, they have to go through a personal development program. That program set clear goals on how they will be achieved, and there were rigorous appraisal and mentorship and monitoring programs to ensure performance metrics, to ensure that the performance metrics were met or exceeded. Of course, this was tied to reward and recognition, and that dreaded pink slip. And of course, one great feature of that program was that the values of the organizations were inculcated at the outset. You know, so everybody knew what they were and they worked towards that goal. And there was an enabling environment that was provided by leadership and management and supervising staff. Now, the latter part is important. For these days, I think the pendulum has swung too far to the, whether right or left, and we are quick to say government can't do everything and excuse poor leadership, corruption, and the abuse of power, and downright incompetence. When in truth and in fact, the buck stops with leadership.
Amen.
You know, if that culture is not promoted at the top, okay, then it will filter down. If a bad culture is in fact promoted and exemplified at the top, it filters down and becomes pervasive. And before you know it, any developmental progress that we may have made comes to a standstill, and we may even start to regress. So in short, holistic development, set high standards and expectations, make sure that you have good governance at all levels, and not just in government, right throughout the society. Make sure everyone from leadership down is accountable, okay, for making sure that our standards and expectations are achieved. And then I think we'll be okay. All right, then.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Very, very good point.
JD, you with us? Just doing a check.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. All right.
Okay, good.
I'll just finish. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll just finish so that we could get where we need to go in terms of who is responsible. And I'm a big advocate for gender inclusivity. We need to get to a point where, well, I'll be just frank, more women in leadership, of course, more competent women in leadership, and more
at higher levels.
Right, at higher levels.
You know, we say we keep
need
saying
more.
We're doing the work. We're writing the speeches.
We need more.
Yeah, we don't want them write the speech. We want them be saying the speech.
No, we're doing more. And equity in opportunity for women and men.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I'll get to education in a little bit because I'm not going to leave here without going through the nitty-gritty about education. But one thing I've always had a problem with in terms of how we lump ministries together, like the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport. Three critical ministries which are just brought under one person, and that really needs a five-man team to manage these critical sectors, because these sectors are important to young people. And so back to the point of people need to determine the processes which are going to direct how they are governed and how they are managed. And then, of course, well, I mentioned focusing on food security, but the last thing is, as my intro to education, is we need to sit people down when they say, hey, I'm going off to study. And say,
Jesus.
Hey, let's look at the degree that you want to pursue and your earning potential over the years, and let's determine if a degree in literature or a degree in business management is really the degree that you need to go to, or if you just need to sit back here and do an online training and become an entrepreneur because you have excellent ideas. And this need to
stay home and work for a while,
for a degree, because a degree is the only way that you could get a good job is really problematic. So
yes,
that's the start of it.
Yes.
Amen.
Well, we just had church in here.
All right, and it wasn't Preacher E, but we coming to you just now. Jenny?
Yes, Joel is on the ball. Oh my goodness, yes. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with that. And I'm guessing when she says education, she's referring to training as well too.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I'm a little bit concerned.
JD?
Wait, JD, we have a caller. Let's just give the caller a second. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to the alarm clock.
Good afternoon.
And all of the panelists.
Good
You know,
afternoon.
it's quite interesting listening to the discussion. And even the reference to Singapore. Now, let me start first. For us to have or to consider a shift, you must first know where we are. Now, for example, there are certain measures, international measures. You have the Human Development Index.
Yes.
And you also have the Economic Growth Index. Now, I think this is where we should start. Where are we? Where are we in terms of them? You know, they have the different aspects, education, health, even the one with women in leadership position. I think most of you would be familiar with it.
Yeah, we were trying to get those statistics before the show, but we didn't get an opportunity to.
The national ones.
The national
ones.
Yeah, the national ones, because we also considered things like the ease of doing business and these things as well.
That's what I'm here thinking.
Yeah,
I'm thinking that the discussion is a bit vague. Good, but vague. Because if you pin down, instead of how the lady just talk about women in leadership position, how are we in health? What do we want? Where are we? Where do we want to go?
No, well,
you can't have a shift, eh?
No, I hear you. I hear your point, but I think
another thing I want to say.
Go ahead. I'll respond
74
after.
out of 189 for HDI in St. Kitts. So you're right, Carla.
but
The
you see, but
the
each
international
different
statistics
rating,
are
eh?
available, but the
Yes.
local
For
ones
health, you
aren't
would have
so
a
easy.
different rating. For education, you'd have a different rating, so that you could discuss where do we want to go in terms of education. Now, that being said, though, the issue of Singapore, you cannot have the Singapore effect in a democratic country.
That's
cannot
the
happen.
different. Yes, Singapore did not
is
start.
not democratic. You do what the government say. It is almost a planned economy. Even Samsung, the government own it. So it is the government that plans the economy. Now, that cannot happen easily in a free, competitive environment. So as much as we want to see the discipline they have in Singapore, we say, well, the lawyers will be lined up for you here. The unions will be aggressive. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, I understand.
The same thing with Taiwan. People don't know that. Taiwan was developed by force. Most of those Asian countries that you see have high this and high that, it was force. The country said what you will do, what you will plant, how much you will produce, this very species. So sometimes I think we in the Caribbean also, we don't quite understand the effect in China with all of that. The government, they have planned economies. Now, so where do we want to go? Now, for me, right, I think what we have is a slow adaptation of technology. This is a technological world, you know. While we are adapting, I think we're a bit slow. Because that will help to increase production, both in goods and services, you know, and in the acquisition of skills. So I will leave it there so that other people can get in.
Okay.
But you get the point I'm trying to make,
Understand?
right?
Yes. Thanks so much for your contribution.
We are too slow at adapting technology, so we're still writing, we're still this in, we're still that in. Even with the education that the young lady explained, and I agree with her. We should know what kind of skills does the country need. And the politics is something else because, you know, we would even want a more balanced panel. All right then.
Thank you so much for your call. The one thing I would say in response to the comment is that yes, we have to be cognizant of the countries that we use as examples. Singapore did have, as she said, it was not a democratic. We have a call. Go ahead. Good afternoon, caller.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes.
I'd like to get in right now. I really just skipped over food security.
No, we didn't skip over it.
It was mentioned.
We didn't skip over it.
No, I just tune in.
Oh, you just
tuned in?
Just tune in.
We didn't skip.
And I hear you all skip over food security, right? About a week or two ago, I heard what's going on around the world. We have a shortage of food. Here we have a pandemic, right? In which the health ministry is entwined with that. But we are not hearing nothing from the agriculture department, because the health department states that we have to be vaccinated. But the agriculture department is not implying what they need to imply. I'm speaking on behalf as a farmer. How is it then, right? The monkeys and the wild pigs could go on farmer's farm and destroy them. How could we secure the food stock on the island? If you understand what I'm speaking of. It's very, very, very disturbing. Because, for example, right, there are some people up in the Douglas Estate area, right, from Millard Meadows up to Stapleton. Lots of them cannot afford to fence their yard long before COVID. But they got a backyard garden. But the pigs that's going on rooting what the pigs does not get, the monkeys get. So then you try to kind of implement something to say, well, to kind of offset your financial burden, but ain't working out. It's not working out. It's not personally, it's not working out. We as a people, because I'll tell you something, I'm much older than you all. And I'm past 60 years. In the mid-60s, we had the premier back then incorporated something called plant and produce. Feed ourselves and export. And then eventually, some persons figured, because the ordinary poor individual who coming out of these slums was being benefiting, they said Bradshaw was a communist. They said Bradshaw was a communist because back then we had sugar and St. Kitts. But yet still we were exporting X amount of agriculture, non-sugar agriculture produce, in which the ordinary individuals, a lot of them parents and grandparents, who was going to university didn't go to no bank to borrow no money, because the parents and the grandparents, they had farmlands. So they was able to self-sustain the grandchildren and the child, because they had no development bank and them kind of things back then. So it shows that back then peanuts and all kind of things was being planted. And it's just depressing to hear some people coming on the radio and speaking, right? I grew up in the era there, mid-60s. I was a very, very small child back then. Of course, my mother's skate wheel can't. I don't know, but I would like you all to get a book that Washington Archibald wrote, A View from Baby's Traffic. That is my mother. Baker's Corner, 4th Street. Baby shoes. I share the son.
Okay.
But I've been involved in this thing about farming, right? And we are not putting in enough. Because I'll tell you something, right? I'll educate you on something which is so prominent that the rural administration is lacking with. There is a well that was dug outside there by Shadwell. The island main road took up the new road going to St. Peter's, right? That water is not potable no more. Why is it then, right? You don't use that water. Carry the water up in beer funds. Put down a catchment. So because you will source the water and go into farming.
Okay.
X amount of ordinary individuals could be involved in farming.
Oh, okay.
Take the load off the tourism industry and put it onto we, because people talking about government, right?
Yes.
And tell you all something, right? You know who is the government? Me, you.
So we're the ones who are responsible. We're the ones who are responsible.
We 11 individuals cannot be the government.
Mm-hmm.
They are the ruling administrators. We elect them. We elect them. So how come then they become the government? If I went junior high school in 1973, right? We learned in school the French and the English was changing hands. When was the last time after the French and the English changed hands that they had a different individual ruling?
Carla, we have to wrap up. You have to wrap up quickly.
But I try to end like the people of this federation. Respect. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We really don't like having to cut off callers, but we have a short space of time, and we had some other callers who may have wanted to get in at the time. But just quickly, just for me to say, we're not proposing that we become like Singapore in the sense of the type of rule. However, we have to underscore the importance of government-led policy and the impact that would have on the direction of our development. The only other thing I want to say in response to Ms. Henry's comments about the discussion, it's good for us to look at the international indexes, but if the people on the ground have views and feelings, we need to hear those views and feelings as well, even if in Ms. Henry's view, their panel is not balanced. But I think if we really listen to what is being said, objective discussion is being had here, regardless of what perhaps she may feel about persons who are on the panel, but everybody has a voice and feelings and opinions that need to be heard, and that's really what Alarm Clock is about. We give voice to all types of opinions and feelings, so hopefully when she continues to tune in, you will hear much more different perspectives.
But you see, ladies, I have sat here since the show started and I've listened to everybody's input. And for me, I'm a great listener. And I like to listen because when you listen, you learn and you understand. Mm-hmm. And you listen to understand as opposed to just responding. And this is one of the conversation that we had earlier about not seeing people's political preference,
Mm-hmm.
but rather seeing their worth and what they bring to any issue, any discussion, any program. And the minute that you're going to look at somebody's political preference and discard them from any further involvement with anything, you are in fact doing yourself a disservice. And
but it's also the same political maturity that we were talking
that
about.
It comes to.
Your ability to see a face from somebody from people who have been very vocal about their political affiliation, and you're able to say, okay, I'm going to listen because I trust that Dr. Joyelle Clark has so much more to her and so much knowledge to her, except the fact that she's aligned with the Labour Party.
And I've learned so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's
in this short space of time this morning, I've learned so much listening to Dr. Clark.
And when
when
we get in these sorts of spaces and we realize that people have some amazing ideas, even down to the caller who called in just now. People might say, oh, he said he's in his 60s, or he an old man, he can't contribute anything. Which is absolutely not the truth.
Right, his contribution was good.
Contributions. So sorry we had to cut him off, but it really goes to show that everybody has their own views and their thoughts about how we could develop the country, and we will continue to give everybody an opportunity to hear those views.
Mm-hmm.
JD, you had anything you wanted? You got cut off earlier for the caller.
Sure. Yes. Great points. Very good points. I was saying that I liked Joyelle's comment, Dr. Clark's comment earlier about, having that discussion with persons who wish to further their studies. And I said I extended to training as well, not just education, but, inclusive of training, because we are going to end up in a far worse situation if we do not diversify our economy and really look at our skill set, the areas in which our people are trained. I remember here on the island of Nevis, we had a situation where neither the government nor even the private sector had trained any pharmacists. Let me go back. Let me be certain and say that the government had offered assistance to persons studying various fields, but in the area of pharmacy, we had a 30+ year span before a pharmacist was trained, and I found that to be shocking. I mean, did we think that we would no longer require the services of a pharmacist in the future? I was really shocked. So I'm thinking, just like Dr. Clark is saying, we really need to diversify our economy. And you asked a question earlier about who is responsible for progress. And while I think that there is shared responsibility, because we each have a role to play in terms of the progress of our nation, we have to remember that the policy direction comes from the top.
That's true.
And that is something that I think we are taking for granted. So many times we talk about what's not happening in an area. The permanent secretary didn't do this, or the director didn't do this. The policy direction must come from the top. The nurses can only carry out what they've been mandated to carry out, and the same goes for other persons. The policy direction must come from the top. And so when we talk about, we need a private sector that's doing more, we need a private sector to really jump in and carry some of the burden and not just put everything on the government, let us ask ourselves, what are the incentives available for private sector businesses? And I'm talking about across the board, not just our friends and not just the companies in which government officials have some shares. But when you talk to small business owners or owners in the private sector, they will tell you that it's like the overhead that's killing them. So what are some of the concessions or the incentives we give to them? It seems to me that we really focus on the bigger private sector companies and not so much so on the smaller businesses that can really help to absorb some of the strain that's happening in our country if we were to invest in them.
I couldn't agree more. There's something that I wanted to share. I've actually been here doing a lot of research to make sure that I am using the right statistics. But I know Ms. Henry would have stated that we cannot use Singapore as an example. But in a recent forum that I attended, I've been speaking about for the past couple of days, is the Her Power Forum done by foreignpolicy.com, who exposed a lot of models around the world. And one of the group of countries that I want us to look at is the Nordic countries. And I'll explain who are comprised in that space. But they are, since she mentioned that we can't use Singapore because they're a planned state and they're not democratic, but they're highly democratic, the Nordic countries. And they all have a unicameral form of governance, but they have exceptional progress that happens there, and they're considered to be constantly the happiest people in the world, right? Now, in 2017, 2018, and 2019, all the 5 Nordic countries, which is made up of Finland, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden and Iceland, were all considered the happiest countries. Now, I'm going to reference again, she mentioned indicators, I'll use that as an example. When we talk about the level of average of life evaluations, the Nordic states are always doing something right. But the Nordic exceptionalism isn't confined to citizens' happiness. No matter whether we look at the state of democracy, when we talk about political rights, lack of corruption, trust
Egalitarian.
between citizens, felt a feeling of safety, social cohesion, gender equality, equal distribution of incomes, human development index, or many other global comparisons, one tends to look at the Nordic countries and see that they have always claimed the top spots for the past couple of years. And they are not planned economies. They are all democratic. And one of the things that we should note is that with the Nordic countries, when after the Soviet Union would have fallen, they would have done a number of things that a lot of countries actually use. Again, the Nordic model is very popular. They would have gone into deregulation. So they removed a lot of policies that caused a lot of tension among people and government. They did a lot of work in privatization, moving a lot of things from public goods into private sector. And these things would have helped them to help people to acquire and obtain and be able to take ownership of the things that had no longer been considered controlled by government, but then acquired by citizens to be able to feel a sense of pride, right? And they were able to move forward, and they continue to move forward, and they continue to be an exceptional example to the world in so many other things. And recently, the discussion about tackling issues of women's rights, employability, improving the quality of life for all has been in childcare, and their exceptional work in childcare and how they value that system. And they plan as if this is what we want our children to look like and sound like and feel like at age 25. And they look at it from the top, and then they address and make a plan to be able to acquire whatever that vision is to get that 25-year-old. How we want that 25-year-old to look like, these are the things we need to do to make sure that we get it.
From childcare.
And it happens, and they also, so we talk about leadership and vision and working together, and I get goosebumps talking about them all the time. But these are countries that Serbia is a really good example. I mentioned that to Gian this morning about them realizing what their issue is. The president spoke about that in the forum as well, when she said that they had an issue of disconnect, a huge gap in digitization, in the digital realm of things when they had the issue of COVID-19. And their priority was to ensure that all of their students had access to internet and reliable digital devices to be able to connect and not lose education. As a result, it had a boomerang effect. And the gentleman earlier spoke about development as a holistic element. So when we address one thing, we often address the other, and that's what I mean by the boomerang effect. It addressed the issue of brain drain, and Serbia had one of the highest rates of brain drain. They no longer do. So imagine in 2 years they were able to tackle an issue by just putting at the forefront digitization of their public sector, private sector. People just in general had increased access to information, increased access to technology, and they were able to turn things around.
People wanting to come back home
yes, exactly, because they have access to that. They had the younger, it's incredible. And being able to highlight the issues and identify that we have this issue, let's speak about the issue and let's bring people together to tackle these issues, help. So it's not about, we see other countries with different systems. Of course, we spoke about reform. Singapore wasn't the way it was all the time, but there's a lot of work to be done, and in a lot of what I have said required maturity, required people coming together of different backgrounds, valuing citizens' opinions and contribution to their development in general. So it's it's really important, because I mean, a lot of people call the Nordic model a social democracy, right? People consider St. Kitts and Nevis to be of that sort, right? So we have to be able to see things, and there are things that happen around the world because people are people. And as much as we are different culturally in our experiences, a lot of it, again, comes down to leadership. How do our leaders demonstrate the way in which we should live, right? If we shout at each other all the time in Parliament, we're definitely going to be shouting at each other all the time when we're in small task force groups to be able to execute a simple project, right? We can't get anything done. So it's the same thing. The culture influence comes from, again, leadership. I really love the contribution that the gentleman made earlier. It is going to remain with me. It is something I believe in, but I will let everybody else have a contribution. Ike, you can go.
Rastafari. I just want to say amen. But you hit every single point out of the park. If this was cricket, you'd probably get a passport and a piece of land somewhere. But the point I want to drive home finally before we get out here, I know that everybody has a part to play when it comes to the development and the progress of any country, but there must be a driving force behind it all. I am not going to absolve any of our leaders from that responsibility. If you put up your hand and say that you want to lead, you have something to offer, then you should have a plan, you should have a vision. And the way to achieve that is to come in, assess the situation, collect the data, analyze the data, formulate a plan from that, and then you execute. I find here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we don't collect much data, and if we do collect much data, we don't analyze it. We don't utilize it. I can't tell you what the Human Development Index is for St. Kitts and Nevis because I can't type it in on Google and find it. I don't know what the unemployment rate is right now because I can't type it into Google and find it. Every time you hear our leaders speak, they tell you how good things are. There's never a problem. Everything is always well and everything is always good. But then you look at them and you wonder, well, which St. Kitts and Nevis they really live in? Can't be the same one.
This is why I say a lot of people don't trust the indexes because they don't feel what the indexes are saying. No, it's not real. It's not real. Like I said, and probably saying we're going to have a fit now home in your house, but every time our Prime Minister speaks since August, he's telling us how well things are in the country. But we live here, we go to the shops, we are the entertainers who ain't working since March, the people in the tourism industry, the taxi men, we feel it every single day. But if you listen to our leaders, everything is well. You see the pictures from Park Hyatt job fair?
And the scripture.
Yes, man, lovely pictures, great
no,
photo
but there's
ops.
a lot of people. No, there are a lot of people. I saw buses being packed up this morning.
Nobody
people going
walk.
to the job fair at Park. I tell you, my heart sink because you thinking there's so many people who are here looking for jobs, but how many jobs would this one
would
Park
be
Hyatt-
available?
Yeah,
I mean, you have to assess your situation with a clear mind.
Are they
We have
willing
a
to
problem.
do that and be honest about it?
I don't think they have the capacity to do it because I've not seen it. I'm not feeling it.
I don't think
Assess
we do
the
that in
problem.
our system, eh?
We don't.
And I don't. I would actually say as well that it's not just this administration. It's just historically our governments have always painted this picture that everything is fine.
Right.
Everything is fine.
Well,
Development
I've
is
spoken,
booming.
I've been in broadcasting for 20 years now, so
Mhm.
I've been speaking this way
Yeah, that's-
since
yeah.
then. And you would think that we would have a shift, but we don't. So I could
So
only speak.
your recommendation is throw it all of them and
Throw it all
start
of them.
fresh.
Yeah, but that's what I've been saying. Throw it all of them and start fresh. Because if you don't have people who are willing to come in and assess the situation, assess the lovely land, get all the information, find out what is wrong, and then formulate a plan to how to fix it,
A strategic plan.
we are going to be in a continual cycle of perpetual darkness, stagnation, mediocrity, all the nice fancy words that you could come up with for not moving from point A to point B. And every time we take a baby step, we want a photo up and a pat on the back. But are we
And that's how
really
money-
progressing? Is the people in St. Kitts, are the people in St. Kitts and Nevis truly happy and moving from one socioeconomic level to another? There's
And
a
it's
big
because we're
disconnect.
always in campaign mode.
There you go. There's a big disconnect between the very rich and the very poor.
Right.
Those who have access to education, information, is a big gap. We see it and we feel it every day because in our fields here in this room, we have to make use of information and data in order for us to formulate plans and move forward in what we are doing. So you're trying to tell me that the people at the very top don't do this?
Nobody wants to present bad statistics.
And
gonna
it's
do that?
crazy. I think we
Who's
need.
gonna
I
do
think. I think it requires that maturity that we spoke about
Yes.
earlier. That if we could stand up at the podium and tell people this is the state of the economy, this is the state of the country. Let's have an honest discussion. How can we move on, as opposed to inviting always. Sometimes we gloat so much that when you do fall down, people are just going to attack you instead of helping you to provide the solutions. Because you would have essentially, I don't want to say
Say it.
No, I think
You boast too much, and some people glad when you fall.
Yeah,
you boast too much.
Yeah, but besides boasting, it is you were dishonest. You weren't forthcoming with information, so people feel slighted. They feel as if you were being.
Can't trust you now.
Yeah, we can't trust you. So we're supposed to help you now in that kind of way, and it has been happening, as you said, for years.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to be in politics since I was 13. So that was with the previous government, with the previous administration, and then now learning and experiencing the same. I mean, to you, Ike, you would have mentioned that getting rid of all of the politicians.
That's very objective.
I mean,
and you've been talking for 20 years.
Which fine, right?
Right.
But I don't know if I don't think that on its own is going
to help.
I want
right.
to say,
I think
so
we
when
should
you
have
finish.
a mixture of experience. But we have to find the experience that is willing to collaborate and then bring the fresh perspectives so that we could be able to, again, because if I go into government today, I couldn't tell you all of the details. No matter how much I say I study international relations and politics and so, I cannot literally go into government tomorrow and function well enough without the mentorship of a senior.
I disagree.
Right?
Knowing what I know of you and your capacity to get things done, I think you would do a way better job than everybody else. But I'm not saying just get rid of them, because look at how they're behaving now. They don't defer to other people other than themselves. And even though you have the technocrats, that's fine. Even though you have the technocrats around you, the micromanagement of these politicians is laughable. You have people who are qualified, people who are bright-eyed and determined, and we stunt their growth because we don't allow them to grow. You have 13 members of cabinet, right? And you have a whole civil service full of technocrats, qualified people, but yet still the system isn't working. So we can sit here and go to the semantics and the verbal gymnastics of not to step on somebody's toes, but look at the fact, look at the reality. It is not working.
We understand, but I think a mixture of experience and fresh perspective.
Will they lend the support?
No, I like his recommendation about personal development. Everybody need therapy.
Everybody.
I went,
let me say this.
I went,
let me say
and
this.
I am better for it. Thank you, Jesus.
I find regionally and nationally, and not just nationally because of what's happening now, everybody knows what's happening now. Everybody wants the title of leader, but very few people actually want to lead the country. It's like a lot of egoism, right? And a big part of the critical leadership that Ike mentioned that's needed right now is that self-assessment. In 2005, when we transitioned from sugar to tourism and services, what happened? We had nearly 10,000 people and a lot of women who occupied the lowest levels in the sugar industry, weeding and not the technical aspects and mechanics in the sugar factory, etc. And that's part of where my studies were focused. And I spoke with women who said, well, what am I going to do now? How am I going to move from weeding cane to being responsible for 5 acres of land? How am I going to move from putting on some clothes in the community and heading to Bastia in a bus to get to Marriott? But what happened then? There was a massive retooling and reskilling of the population. And that's what's needed now. We recognize that were it not for this pandemic, we wouldn't realize how behind we were on the creative industry, how behind we were on the revamping of the curriculum, how
more people realize
we were on digitization of our economy and the education sector, and how ridiculous it was of an idea. This is my one job to create one modern school and not reinvest in every single high school in the Federation. That's problematic. And so you have people now who need to head over to the job fair because what other options are there? But you know how many options there are? If you give every single person in St. Kitts and Nevis the device and the internet so that they can go and find their own way in this digital space, we're going to have a booming economy. If you allow the entertainment sector, bearing all the guidelines, to reopen, to reopen with their creativity, because people are sitting down on some magnificent ideas that just need to be ICT based, that just need to be digitized, and they just need it. And I say this last thing that I find it so shocking, especially as a woman, that it's so easy for you to go to the bank and get a loan for a flashy new car. But can you go to the bank and say, listen, I have this really brilliant idea and I want money to invest in this? No, who you be? Where you come from?
Yes.
I'm a single woman and I want to build a house. Well, you really should have a partner. It's going to be easier for you.
You can't do it by yourself.
So young entrepreneurs have no opportunity whatsoever, because we've created this system where, and this is the last point about this, where we focus on empowering those at the bottom through like low-income houses and social services. And then those at the top get the tax break and they can invest and they can get access to loans. And then we have this burgeoning middle class of skilled people who have no access to opportunity. You can't get a house as a single man. You can't really do anything other than just be indebted.
And a single woman.
Yeah, don't forget the ladies at home.
You're a single woman and you are really, really stuck. So we're creating a society of permanent renters or permanent live with my parents but keep, hush about a lot. I kind of live with my parents. Or, well, I have a car but I don't have anything else. I have this brilliant business idea but nobody's going to invest in me. We got to fix this part about our society, and it starts with recognizing.
Mia Motley has started that conversation.
I was just going to say Mia Motley down there in the east, beating her, going on about Caribbean, and we have leaders here who are doing nothing.
Yes. Good afternoon, caller.
Yes, I just wanted to make one additional point.
Yes.
That is, we are definitely not the worst in terms of development. When you look at those international indicators, Human Development Index and GDP per capita, etc. And as a matter of fact, since independence, we have made steady progress in so many areas under successive administrations. So we have advanced and we continue to develop. The problem is that we could have been much further ahead if we had the systems in place to promote our development. Or we do have systems in place, but they need to be better managed, better worked. Okay? So we're not starting from scratch. I think where we fall short, a big area in which we fall short, is our politics, and that is fixable, right? We just need the will to fix it. Right? Someone mentioned constitutional reform, things like that. Those things are fixable. And I don't accept that because we have a parliamentary democracy, it automatically means that we cannot be disciplined.
Exactly.
Okay? We cannot be like Singapore. Okay? What we need, I think, is the will. We know what to do. It's just a matter of getting down to business and doing it, accelerating our development. That is what we need to do. Right? Don't just stay, whatever areas we have leadership in, try to maintain those and strive for accelerated development.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you so much. JD?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, you wanted to make a comment?
No, I was agreeing.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard you about to chime in there. Yes, but it's now 1:19, so we have 10 more minutes. Wow, what a discussion we're having, and I know that there are more like-minded people out there,
of course.
regardless of political affiliation, regardless of age, regardless of gender,
sexual orientation.
Yes, all these different things that we use to put us in these camps. And I always talk about the fact that I remember one year when I was in Scanaipo as president, we got invited to the PAM Youth Convention or the Women's Convention, and we also got invited to the Labour Women's Convention. And I went to both conventions, and they are saying the same exact thing. Because in the two parties, they're saying the same exact things, but nobody is going to think about us coming together and actually collaborating to get the same goals that each of you have.
That's why Seawell is such a good space for women.
Yes, it absolutely, it actually is a very good space, and it shows that people can collaborate. And it forces people to actually work together and put your differences aside. You know, we could work together, but you know, from time we walk out this room, I'm putting on my NRP shirt, you putting on your CCM shirt or whatever, and that's it. But we will remain professional and cordial to each other. These things are possible, and a lot of times I think our history tells us that, makes us think that it's not, but it absolutely is possible.
But let me ask you this. If you leave the room and you put on your Labour shirt and she put on she PAM and she put on she CCM shirt, and all three of you get into an accident and you go to the hospital, healthcare going to pick out that you is the Labour, and so you get the MRI, and she got to go by Monkey Farm, or she got to go to St. Martin to get the MRI.
Right, we got to get rid
And
of
so
that.
we have to get into the mind frame that it doesn't matter whether they use a CCM, a PAM, a Labour, or NRP.
Exactly.
The services that we need to cater to us as human beings must be at a certain level, be it education, food security, national security, agriculture, whatever it is. It has to be at a certain level so it can cater to all of us. No matter the political side.
We all driving on the same streets. We all, we're all doing the same thing.
I believe my future husband is out there as a CCM, but he's afraid.
Okay.
He's a CCM, but he's afraid to come over.
Is you sending some hints? She's sending some hints.
Say that again?
Is that a hint to somebody who's listening?
To the CCM man out there, JD is waiting.
I'm going to pray for the wedding.
It's a light moment, but it's true in the sense that we have people who are afraid to do certain things because, you know, of political affiliation. And Ike hit the nail on the head when he said, you know, we got to get to the understanding that we all require the same services. We all have to operate in the same environment. I think we are too small for this. And one of the things I like to tell people, if you decide that you're going to deprive me of something based on political affiliation, you don't even realize how you are putting your own supporter in a bind. And I say that because, for example, in Neve, I'm a NRP supporter at this point in time, and you choose not to give me a job that I'm qualified for because of my political affiliation. However, you now leave me without bread. I can't provide for myself and my child. Who do I then have to turn to for support, for some assistance? My friend who just happens to be a CCM, who you've been propping up because you want them to look good and feel good because they're your supporter. But at the end of the day, they can't enjoy that reward because they have to now support me, who you've taken out of bread. You know, so these are the kind of things that people don't realize, or maybe we realize, but we don't care. Our community, our society is too small for it. And it comes back to what you guys have been saying all morning, and that is the maturity.
Amen.
I remember a couple of months ago, because I'm an advocate for gender equality, I mentioned to a friend of mine about intersectionalities, and he was like, oh, y'all, people coming up with all kind of things every day. What's this now? So I said, this is just basically accepting that people are defined by different circumstances. So I'm a woman, but I'm a rural woman, or I'm a woman, but I'm LGBTQ+, or I'm a Christian, but I'm also in a lower socioeconomic brackets, and recognizing that we can't just use one paintbrush to say this is the solution. Inclusivity. We have to recognize that people have so many experiences and lived realities that are influencing how they function and what they do and what they need. And so development has to focus on all these intersectionalities, which brings me to that point that I didn't really want to comment on it, but
you're done there.
But we're not just here because we're politically affiliated. We are lawyers, entertainers, social commenters. Yeah, I could be a senator, but I'm also a teacher. I'm also an environmentalist. So my objectivity is possible not just because I'm a labor. So the panel, so it really kind of burned me a little bit that people only see you from one dimension.
It's called reductionism.
Right. Look at all our lived realities and how we can comment on situations. And that too is look at what people are experiencing. People aren't just out there without a job. There's a woman who has 3 children who's without a job. There's someone who is living in a very large family, has no personal space, who needs therapy, who's without a job. There's a labor who is without a job. There's a PAM who's without a job. So there are many dimensions to us as Kitutians, and that needs to inform development. Stop looking at people as A, B, and C.
Yeah, we're multifaceted humans, and I would like us to remember that. We always really just, I mean, even when you put persons on a pedestal, you tend to just see them, you glorify them so much that when they do have indicate their human flaw, they now become less than. Right? They're less than, and then, you shouldn't do that because you were in this position. You understand? I've been, over the past couple of weeks, experiencing that in terms of listening to others speak of others that they think are in power. I know people who just have certain positions in the state in terms of like director of something, chair of something, and then people put them hold them accountable even more than they hold the politicians accountable. And it actually grosses me out, because I'm like, how are you not holding politicians to this level of accountability? But an individual who is working hard, is a part of the private sector, doing everything that they're supposed to do, support themselves and others, enjoying life. You understand? You're not giving them the benefit of the doubt, but you're giving a politician who is supposed to be, in your mind, in everybody else's mind, supposed to be demonstrating some level of professionalism. Is supposed to be, relatable, talk to you, address your issues, not run away from the things, and you're not holding them to that level of accountability. It's incredible to me how we
You're reinforcing Ike's point about throwing away the existing because they're supposed to be, but I don't think we told them that you have a responsibility to keep these ethics, these moral standards, and to behave like that.
They took an oath.
Elect them and
to who?
Okay.
To the Queen? You want to the Queen? Okay.
They took an oath. So I mean, you see, I say it like that because that's how people hold their politicians accountable, especially in the U.S.
We need to stop.
When you hear people talk about U.S. Politicians, senators, whatever you are, whatever position you hold, they always tell them, you took an oath, and the oath says that you are supposed to, but we just don't.
The content of the oath. Look at who they swear allegiance to. Look at what they say that they're going to uphold. We owe down here ain't to us,
Right. And then
we just vote for them.
That's a very
but
good
they say
point.
the Queen, then she walk.
And if we hold them accountable, then the first thing we're gonna have to deal with, this huge elephant in the room, is how is it when one becomes a politician, they become a millionaire? How does that happen as a politician in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Insider trading.
Well, we might.
That's
we
the
might
first accountability. How do you reconcile being before having this and then becoming a politician and you become a millionaire?
So when you win the next election, I go ask you the question.
Please ask me. Please ask me. And that's part of the reason, and I'll tell you now, I'll tell the whole nation now, that's part of the reason why I am adamant that I must step into politics, elective politics rather, when I'm fulfilled and when I could open my bank account and say, hey, you did that. Because having little and entering into, and I'm not saying that if you have nothing, you shouldn't go into politics, because you can make a change. And I'm not saying that politics is so inherently corrupt that once you step in there, you're going to become corrupt. But to protect yourself from that need to become corrupt. And sometimes it's fueled by the fact that once you become a politician, people expect you to sponsor this, donate to that, and do that. But just to ensure that you could separate your earnings from your politics, that's something that I'm going to wait a while so that I could say, this money was mine. This consultancy is mine. When I get into politics, this is what I made. And I understand why some politicians say, well, my paycheck will be $1 a month, so that they could stay away from the financial corruption associated with your ascent into politics. Ask me the question, EK. Okay, I don't know when, but ask me the question.
I don't remember too, you know.
Yes. Ask me the question.
That's even ongoing with you, but yeah.
Whoever, just ask.
Well, I'm so happy.
You're coming?
I like Joel. I need to make sure that I can walk out when I feel like walking out, and don't feel like I have to stay. JD, we could ask you the question when you get elected. We could ask you the question. JD, what do you have? All right. Well, I'm gonna ask you now to give us some wrap up your final comments, because we have to close out the show now.
Yes. So, guys, I just want to say thank you so much for having me part of this discussion. I really enjoyed this discussion. I can't believe how quickly the time went by.
So good.
I mean, it would have been nice to continue the discussion, really, really, really. But I think it's a good topic. It's one that's worth revisiting at a later date, or even dissecting, because I think some great themes would have come out of the discussion today. And so maybe that is something that one can consider going forward. But at the end of the day, my closing statements or my final statements on this would just be that to reiterate some of the things I've said before. And one chief among them is that we need greater support for our businesses if we are to see real change, if we are to get some of the strain away from government. And I'm not just talking about the big businesses, because they have been doing pretty okay, but I'm talking about the ordinary man who's trying to get into business, or who has a business but just needs a little bit of help. And I maintain that we can do all we can. We can do all that is possible, but the policy direction must come from the top. So while all of us, each of us, have an individual responsibility to contribute to the development of our island and our country, it is for the government, is for those at the top to get the policy and have it trickle down to the ordinary man. So thank you so much, and it's definitely been a pleasure.
All right, thanks so much. EK, your closing thoughts?
All right, just simply to say thanks for the invitation, and it was truly a great experience. I'm always very pleased to be on a panel filled with so many women who have so much to offer, who are so versed and poised. I just feel like a little child in a candy store, to be honest with you. But on a serious note, I think that we, as a people, we could definitely get to where we need to get to in a quicker time than we are moving right now. Yes, we are not the worst. We already established that. But we could be much more further along than where we are right now if we would just do what is necessary to get the ball rolling and to move forward and to realize our true potential and, to just execute and get to that point. So I am all for a part 2 or continuation, and we could probably take some of the points. I know Desi always makes notes, and we can hone in on a few of those points and develop them even further. It's probably going to be free work, but it's still there. We're all here for nation building. So to my friend Jario, who is listening and loving the conversation, he's asking for a part 2. So ladies, anytime you are ready, I am ready.
Well, we have one more show for the year, so we could probably consider that. We'll see what direction we could come from and let you guys know.
Yes. So again, thanks for the invitation, and it's always great to be here with you ladies. Have a great, great, great weekend.
Thank you so much.
All right. So thank you. I want to start by thanking Jihan for inviting me here as Dr. Clark. I mean, I know I cannot remove the senator hat, but I also want an appreciation for the fact that the commentary doesn't always have to come from the political position that you maintain at this point in time. But I'll wrap up by saying that we need to get to real change. We need to get to real change, which involves total restructuring of the education sector towards real digitization. food security, which means that we are developing our internal capacity to feed ourselves, and also just climate resilience, so that we understand that when we get out of this pandemic, we have to face that whole issue of the climate realities as a small island, and then most importantly, the gender equity that's required to ensure that we have an egalitarian society where both men, women, young, old, everybody has equal opportunity for development, for self-advancement, for self-contentment. And finally, that let's just put the politicization of our society aside and recognize that St. Kitts and Nevis can do so much more if we just stop looking at people through one filter, your political affiliation. There's so many other filters that we can use. St. Kitts and Nevis is one of the strongest economies in the Caribbean, and I just want to bring up EK's point about Mia. She's down there in the Eastern Caribbean battling for the entire nation, and we have a strong economy, which means we need to start to do some batting. We need to start to support not just St. Kitts and Nevis, but this regional effort for development outside of all of the strings attached and the loans and the indebtedness. So St. Kitts can get so much further if we recognize our own power and potential and pull the rest of the Caribbean along. And yes, I'm looking for a part 2.
All right, thank you. Am I supposed to be giving closing remarks, or am I just shutting down the show? Thank you. Okay, all right, so thank you guys so much. I love the discussion. I love sitting on panels with people that are much more experienced than I am, because I get to learn so much. I am now adding fangirl to JD. I'm fangirl for you too. Fangirling you all the way. Dr. Clark, a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be in your presence and to hear you speak right in front of me. I only see you on TV, so
she's seriously fangirls. It's not a
I am
joke.
a serious fangirl of you. I don't know if my friend Kristen has told you that, but I am a huge fangirl of you. Ike, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure sitting and talking to you. Thank you guys so much for talking about making the paradigm shift to real progress. We definitely got to the bottlenecks, what's stopping national progress. I'm looking forward to expanding the conversation some more. Thank you so much to WINNmedia, SKN, for having us. And we'll see you guys next month. And thank you for all the callers.
Last Saturday
thank you
of
so
the
much.
month.
It's the last Saturday of the month. I think so. I think
Yes.
so. Yes.
It's always.
All right. Thank you guys. And we're out.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects or sunshine, or how the bright blue of its